Okay, this afternoon what we're going to do is we're going to cover trustee rights and giving people access to their files and folders. As a quick review, I'm going to just review kind of what your directory structure and e-directory structure and all that kind of stuff should kind of look like, and I'll answer questions along the way. Starting out with logging onto the server to the web browser, going to Management Services, and then going to iManager. And logging in, LTC. So remember that when we're working with iManager, we're working with the directory structure. So the directory structure deals with the organization and the people and that kind of stuff. I cleaned everything else up. I don't have the PFL, I don't have Acme or anything. I just have Benfield because that's where my server is located. And then Garopa, which is where I've created all these organizational units and structures. If they have the Garopa org chart, which you should have around and sort of look at today, we'll be using that quite a bit. And let me grab that real quick. We'll be concentrating, we'll actually be looking at the whole thing. So we'll be concentrating on our managers in the different areas, sales, operations, accounting, IS, HR, and the executive area, and then breaking it down to our different subdivisions and things. So keep that available. I'm going to put this on a different screen so I can keep referring back and forth to it. Underneath our different areas, my directory structure is going to look with accounting, executive. I do have a groups container, a groups organizational unit to help keep track of my groups that I'm working with. They can be put other places, and we'll start talking about that more later. Human resources, information, operations, and sales. Inside of each of these, if I look into accounting, I'll see that I have two subcontainers. I know that there should be a third for Arthur Anderson. I'm just completely ignoring them today. We don't need to get there. So I have accounts payables and accounts receivables as two more organizational units. Those organizational units then have people in them. There's different ways of dealing with this. They could have been dealt with groups. I really try to avoid groups whenever possible, especially if it's structurally organized this way. This seems to work really, really well. So organizational unit for accounts receivables is going to have a couple of people in it. And then I have Andrew, who's my manager, and I have account manager role. Going back under executive then, I have two people and I have a president role. I'm going to skip groups. There's really nothing in groups I need to worry about right now. I have human resources. It has 3 employees, and I have an HR manager. If I click on HR manager, I see that that role is occupied by Alexis. IS has a manager and 3 employees. Operations has a manager, ops manager, and also first, second, and third shift organizational units. Clicking on the first shift, I'll see my people underneath here. Going up, I can see second shift people, and then I can see third shift people. Under sales, I broke sales up into an east and a west. My sales manager sits up on top with east and west being underneath there. Under Garopa itself, I did create a template. I only created 1 template. I didn't feel the need for creating templates for all the departments. I was having you practice that just for the practice of creating more and more templates to work with it. But it has all the restrictions that I needed it to and wanted it to. So the only thing that could have been advantageous for working with department templates is possibly having a department name for those individual people. I typically don't use those very much anyway, so I didn't see a need for that. So that's the organizational structure. So I have departments, and I have divisions, and I have the people in there. Then I also have the file system side. And you can access that through the iManager. I just like keeping them separate. I definitely like this tool better, the Remote Manager tool. So I'm going to log into this. And then I have two volumes that I'm really working with. My template that I created under iManager said that when you create a user, automatically create a home folder with certain rights, and rights are what we're talking about today. So if I click on my home volume, that's where I'm going to see all the different home directories there for those individual people. Under data, I had to go in and create all these. You can create them through Remote Manager, or you can create them through Windows Explorer. However you do it, we're having a very, very similar structure, and this is where it gets very confusing. Because you're going to say, I just created an accounting folder or organizational unit or whatever, and I just created executive and human resources. Why do I have to do this again, and which one's which? And shouldn't I click on accounting here, shouldn't I have, I'll have to fix that. Shouldn't I have a bunch of people under here because I don't need the accounting people? No, this is the files and folders for those people. I did make a mistake here. It looks like under accounting I have east-west. That shouldn't be the case. Let me fix that. Delete the directory. Yeah. Oh, actually, I could probably rename the directory. It might be easier. Accounts payable. And then I'll make a new one for accounts receivable. Under executive, I don't have anything. There's nothing structurally that I need for folders as far as keeping track of the executive people, at least not at this point. It's a very fundamental structure right now. Human resources, the same thing. Information systems. So I would not find people under here because these are folders for their data. Under operations, since structurally, under operations, I have 3 shifts. And if I spend enough time to designate them as different shifts organizationally, there's probably some reason to also organize their data structurally into shifts as well. So you kind of match your file system after your eDirectory format or structure. Same thing under sales. You know, there was a reason that I put them under East and West. For whatever reason, the company decided to go with that route. Well, let me give them a place to put their files and folders as well. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, so that's our directory structure, and this is our eDirectory structure. And they should look very, very similar. On our file system side, we do add another directory, though, called shared. It's a really nice, common place to throw things that might be available to everybody, or where I need to work between departments, where, you know, file management side may not necessarily make sense. Like, how could human resources and information systems work on a project together? Well, they really can't get into each other's stuff, and you really don't want them to. Well, let's throw it underneath shared. And then we secure it under there that only they can access it, but they can get it to a nice and easy place. Right now, you have to manually get to these different places. When we look through it, I'll take you through. But next time, not next week, there's no class next week, but the week after that, we work with login scripts. And login scripts give you drive mappings to folders and locations, so it's a lot easier to navigate to those places. So there's lots of manual navigating. I'm going to show you a couple of ways of working with rights. To begin with, I'm going to log in as just a person. So I'll log in as Madison, since her name's up here already. I'll log in as Madison, and she's the president of the company. And so I go ahead and log in, and I'm logged in right now. And I want to see what Madison has access to. If I click on the folders, the Windows Explorer, and then I click on Network, my server should show up. Sometimes it takes longer than others. And I'm choosing the Benfield serve. Don't choose the -W. That means that it's the Windows server share, and you have to log in separately using the simple password. Since I already logged on using Novell Client, I can directly access this. This gives me access to all the volumes. It lets me see all the volumes. I double click on home, and all I see is Madison. I no longer see all those 50, 60 people that are under Garopa, their home directories. I only can see my own home directory. Going back up to the server and I click under data, I don't see anything. So what happened to all those folders that are on the data volume? No one at this point can see them except admin, who's given special rights, which we can talk about in a few more weeks. But right now, Madison is logged in but doesn't have access to anything, and that's the default. So when people are created, they don't have access to anything until you give them access. And that's what we're concentrating on today. So how do we give people access? There's a couple different ways of doing that. I'm going to show you the Windows Explorer way first, and it's kind of simple. It's very simple, in fact, and it's very convenient in some cases. However, we're going to be concentrating on Remote Manager and doing all of our administration, just like we've been doing before, using this tool. The advantage of this tool is that I don't need to have a special client installed. I don't need to be on the same network as you are. I can do this from anywhere, anytime, and it's completely web-based. So you can even do this on the person's computer while they're logged in. Right now, I'm logged on into the computer as Madison, and so Madison can't see her folders. It's very confusing. I go to a web browser, log in, make the appropriate rights changes that I need to, and Madison never logs out, and she'll have the access then. These are two different routes of getting to the server. One is the web browser. I'm logged in as admin right now, and she's still logged in. So that makes sense? You kind of have two different ways. So it's really convenient to keep it that way. But let's work with the Windows Explorer way first. To start that way, I need to log in as the user who can do something, which would be admin. So I'm going to log in as admin. And now I'm in the same directory, but I just hit F5 to refresh, and now I can see everything. Madison's in the executive area, and so let's just start with that folder. It's a nice folder, easy folder to work with anyways. It's a nice, simple structure. There's nothing fancy going on. We just need the executive people to give access, be granted access to the executive folder. If I right-click on executive, you're going to see that you have all of these different N icons over here. And trustee rights is what we want to be concentrating on. It's called trustee rights. When you're entrusting somebody with something, that's making them a trustee. You think of trustees of buildings, you think of trustees of funds, you think of trustees of pretty much anything, and that's what you're doing. There's two parts to any kind of, it's an access control list or trustee list. There's a who, usually on the left-hand side, and then can do what on the right-hand side. So we have a who can do what. Now, the who can be any person. So I can say Daniel or David or Olivia or Emma or Brandon or Lauren. I can give them specific rights. Sorry. We try to avoid that pretty much at all costs. We really don't want to be giving rights to individual people, except for their home directory. That's what the only exception. Once you start giving data rights or department rights to individual people, once they move or transfer or get different roles and responsibilities, you have to keep track of all that. That's why we use other objects to help us out with that. Other trustee objects we can have in here is an organizational role. So the sales manager, for instance, looking at my Garopa org chart, Joshua is the sales manager. I don't want to give Joshua rights. I want to be giving the sales manager role rights. What's nice about that is that you get the rights all set up, all configured, and all you have to do is add people to occupy it or role occupant or remove them, and the rights never change. All you're doing is adding or removing people. This is a very, very simple situation, but if you think of something very, very complex, like say the sales manager does have rights to all these different places or limitations in other areas, trying to reset that up every time a new user takes that role, would be very difficult. That's why you create a role. Put them in, take them out, they gain those rights or get them taken away. So we can use users, we can use organizational roles. Another biggie, one that we use a lot, is an organizational unit. Windows will use groups a lot. So if you have a sales department, you have a sales group. Well, they're already in a container. We created an organizational unit for that. So let's just use the container as that object. And that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to be looking for, I'm working with the executive directory. So I want everybody in the executive container, which is right here, to have certain rights. And these are the rights that will be given. Now on the bottom is, this is telling you what those rights are. We have read, write, erase, create, modify, file scan, and access control. Starting off with read over here. Read gives you the ability to open a document. If it's an executable file, it lets you be able to execute that file. If there's contents in a Word document, it lets you open up and read the words inside of it, or an Excel spreadsheet, or look at the picture, or watch the movie, listen to the song, whatever it's going to be. I can read the document, read the contents of the document. The next one is write. Write means that you're writing to the content of a file. It doesn't mean writing to a directory. It means writing to a file. So if I did have a text document, I could then edit that file and modify the contents of it. Erase lets me erase the file or subdirectories or the directory itself. So I'm able to delete objects. So it's saying that you're allowed to erase it. Create is just the opposite. I can create new documents. Modify is a little bit tricky. We think of modify as modifying the contents of a document. That's not true. That's the right. Modify is modifying the attributes of a document, such as if it's archive or read-only or system file, what are those kinds of things. And its name is considered an attribute. So if you want to rename a file, you would have to have the modify rights, or rename a directory. This is relating to this executive directory right now, so you need the modify rights. Then you have another one called file scan. A file scan is the ability to see that this file exists. See that the file exists. It's when you do a DIR that something actually shows up. It's a little bit different than making it hidden. Hidden is an operating system level, and it's a file attribute. And in Windows, you saw a little checkbox somewhere along the line that said, show hidden files. And so you can kind of like get around that kind of thing. If you remove the file scan checkmark up here, they will not be able to see it. And Windows can't bypass it because it's not an attribute. It's the operating system doesn't report it back. I'm not going to show you the files. Now, can you open a file that you can't see? Yes, you can. If you type in the name of it, you have to know exactly the name. That'll be very difficult to navigate. And was that budget or budgets or 2012 budget? So not being able to see the name would be very, very difficult. Most of the time, when you work with Windows Explorer, the default is going to be read and file scan. And if you think about that, let's see the file that exists and open it, but I can't change the contents. I can't rename it. I can't delete it. If it's a directory, I can't make new files or folders underneath it. It's essentially what we think of overall as read-only. I can read the file, I can see the file, I can read the file, but I can't change it, so it's read-only. If I go through and I change all these or check all of these, it's going to give me the ability to read, write, erase, create, modify, and file scan, which is everything. We think of that as a read-write or full access. And a lot of times when I say I'll give somebody full access, that's what I mean. Well, don't I have 2 more check marks to work with? Well, one thing is in Windows Explorer, I don't have the ability to have supervisor. I can only check that checkbox in Remote Manager. But if I were able to, it just means everything on this list. Well, that's not so bad. I got almost everything listed already. Anyway, what's the difference? The difference is this checkbox. This is access control. When you give somebody access control, that means that person now has access to this page. And they are able to add people, add containers, add groups, add whatever they want to it, and give whatever rights they want. They're also able to uncheck different things. They're also able to remove objects. And unless they're trained in that area of network security, they probably shouldn't be given access control. And in reality, the only person that should have access control is you, the administrator, or the group of administrators that you have. People should not be able to modify their own rights or rights of other people in other folders. That's your job. When you're looking at, say, hey, you know what, it's their folder, it's for executive, let them do whatever they want to do with it. What's going to happen if all of a sudden they, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let's see, let's click on Garopa and add. I wonder what that does. Oh, I don't know. Let's just exit out of here. I'm not sure what happened. What'd you just do? You gave everybody in the company access to the executive documents. Now, they can't change it, but they certainly can be looking around at it. Is that something that you want? No. Or worse yet, they say, you know what? I don't know, what is all this stuff? Let's just get rid of all this. You remove, and you click apply. Now what? They just remove themselves. They have the ability to remove themselves from this trustee list. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. No one should have access control except you, the administrator. And right now you do because you're admin. So let's go put this back. We'll put executive back. And I click apply. So now what I'm saying is that anybody in the executive folder can do anything in the executive folder. Anybody in the executive container, can do anything in the executive folder. So let's try it out. Let's log back in as Madison. Remember last time I logged in? I was not able to see anything in the data directory, data volume. Now I can see executive. And when I go into executive, I can make new text documents in executive order. I can make a new folder called samples. If I don't want something, I can delete it. I can do anything that I want in there. Robert is also in this folder, in this container, so Robert could do anything in this folder as well. See the stuff, change the stuff, and modify it to whatever you want to do. That's a very, very simple way of doing that. And we do this with all our directories. Let's do another one just to review that. Let's log in as admin again, because I will need to change. I need to change trustee rights. So even like looking right now, you can sort of see like logging in, logging out, logging in, logging out. It's a little tedious. It's kind of nice to be able to keep the person logged in. You log in a different way through the remote manager and be able to change it. Let's choose IS. IS is a nice simple one as well. I right click on IS. I go to trustee rights. Well, who should have rights to the IS folder? Well, maybe the IS container. What should they be able to do in that folder? Probably everything. And then I apply it, and then I click close. Let's log in somebody from IS. Let's see. Lauren is in IS. And so now I'm logged in as Lauren, and all I see in the data volume right now is just the IS folder. So I was logged in as Madison, all I could see is executive. I log in as IS, all I can see is IS. I double click on IS, and I can do pretty much anything in here. To sort of see this, I'll show you this as well, is if I right-click on here, I can go to property. Well, let's go this way. It's easier. Right-click on here and go to trustee rights. And right here it tells me the effective rights. What can I effectively do right now as this user? And you can see that I can read, write, erase, create, modify, and file scan, which are all rights. But logged in as Lauren right now, for this folder, I do not have access control or supervisor. So that means I can see this stuff, but I can't add it or remove it. I can't make any changes to this stuff, and that's good. Again, if somebody doesn't like, oh, I wonder what these do, click, 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 and then click OK, and who knows what they just did. So, questions so far? Yes. Okay, we'll do one more here then. Let's log back in as admin. And let's do HR, Human Resources. If I right-click on Human Resources, I can go to Trustee Rights. And now again, I have the trustee list. So there's the who can do what. Well, thinking about this, make it very simple. Who should have access to HR? HR. So let's find HR. We'll select HR. And we click Add. Now, what should the people in HR be able to do in their department directory? Everything. Now, again, when I say everything, it does not include access control. It never includes access control. Should never, I should say. Should never include access control. Once I get that, I click Apply and then Close. Let's log in as somebody from Human Resources. Let's try Emma. And now, when Emma's logged in, she can't see IS, she can't see executive, she can't see sales, she can only see HR. Why can she only see HR, not the rest? Because she doesn't have file scan rights to any of those other ones. So she does have file scan access to HR, and when she goes into it, she can do whatever she wants. To see that she can do whatever she wants, if you right-click on HR and go to Trustee Rights, it tells her that she can read files here, write files here, erase, create, modify, and file scan. The other way of working with Trustee Rights is using a remote manager. So right now, I am logged in as Emma. So I see HR, I'm logged in as Emma. So if I'm trying to work with this, I could still do this stuff if I use the web browser remote login, remote server. I'm still logged in as admin on my remote manager over here. And if I'm making changes, I can make the changes underneath here as well. So I'm working with the HR folder right now. To work with the HR folder, I click on the little icon to the left of the HR folder. Now, you've done this several different times for different things, such as creating additional directories, subdirectories for renaming a directory, for deleting a directory. Pretty much anything you work with on that directory using this icon. It also does the trustee information. Instead of the little box that comes up, it's part of this whole page. Right in the middle is what you just created. You just put this in through Windows Explorer. You told that HR container is going to have read, write, create, erase, modify, and file scan rights to the HR folder. Okay? Things you can do in here, since I'm logged as admin, I can change those. I can click on this trustee rights, and it shows all the same rights, just a little different view, and you can check or uncheck the ones that you want to give them. So if I only want to give them read and file scan rights, that's what you can do. Now, right now that took place. So if I switch back over to my directory here and I go under HR and I try to make a new folder, I can't because I'm not given create rights. So switching back over to Remote Manager, I click on the trustee rights and I say, I'm going to allow you to create objects. I go back to Windows Explorer and I make a new folder and I hit enter. Let's try to delete it. I can't because I haven't given you the erase rights. Let's see if we can rename it. I can't even rename it. I can't do anything with it. I can see that it exists, and I can go into it because I'm given the read rights to it and the file scan rights to it, but I can't do anything else with it. So switching back over here, let's go ahead and give it the rest of its rights, all except access control. I click OK, go here. Now I can rename it, and now I can make additional new documents, and I can delete objects as well. So this is a tool for doing that. To add, it's a little bit different. Well, let me delete this, in fact, just to show the whole process of it. I don't want this to be here anymore, so I hit delete, and now this person, or this organizational unit, HR container, has no more rights. I go back under here, under data, and there's nothing there. So I'm logged in as Emma, but poor Emma can't see anything. To add the trustee, it's just like you did in using Windows Explorer. You find the trustee first that you want to add by browsing. So I'm going to browse over here. This process is a little bit trickier. I shouldn't say trickier. It's not as intuitive. It's kind of backwards when we're selecting other objects. So normally if I want to select an object, I just click on it. That means selecting it. This is actually navigating. I will navigate into the Benfield tree. I'll navigate into Garopa or down into Garopa. I'll navigate into Human Resources, and then I have these people. But I can't click on anybody here. The selection tool, the selecting that object, is really on the left-hand side. Now, I don't want to go this deep into here, so I want to go back up. You can also navigate back up and down the tree by going down into the tree, back up, down, down, up, and sort of navigating this way. So going back to where we started from, we want to select Human Resources because Human Resources, HR, is who we want to make a trustee. So I click on Garopa, and now that I want HR, I choose this icon over here. Like I said, it's backwards from our other tools, so we're going to click on HR. Just by clicking on that, all it does is enter it into this field. This is something that you can type in. I wouldn't want to type this because you have to get the exact dots in the right place, in the right name. Was it IS or IT? Is there an underscore? Is it a dash? Select from a list whenever possible. Once you have it entered in here, you click Add Trustee, and it brings up the list of objects you want. Windows Explorer gives you the minimum, which is read and file scan, and a Remote Manager gives you all of them. And it's smart enough not to give you supervisor or access control. So all you have to do here is click OK because those are the rights that I want. And now just by doing that process, Emma's logged in. I refresh the screen, and there's my HR folder. If I wanted to, for whatever reason, I could navigate. Let's go up a directory. I could go to IS. And just for this description, we already created this in here. I want to browse for HR again. For whatever reason, I want to give HR access to the IS folder. And here's Emma sitting in her own little world. and refreshes the screen, and all of a sudden IS shows up for her as well. So that's the way of working with Remote Manager. To clear that up, I made a mistake. I don't want that to be there. I click delete, click yes, back here, and it just disappears on the person. Questions or comments? Pretty easy so far? Okay, what I want you to take your time right now, just for the next 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, is to go through all the top level directories, sales, operations, IS, HR, executive, and accounting, and give those people, the appropriate department, rights to those folders. So accounting should have access to accounting, executive to executive, HR to HR, IS to IS, ops to ops, sales to sales. Who should have rights to shared? And how would I do that? Who's everybody? Add what? Add Garopa. It's very simple that way. Yep. I choose Garopa, add the trustee. Sometimes this takes longer than others, not sure why. Click OK. Now I'm little Emma sitting over here, and all of a sudden a shared folder comes up. But realizing that's shared with everybody, and she can see HR and shared. Somebody from IS will see IS and shared. Somebody from operations will see operations and shared. So, and they have all rights to it. That's the idea. Put something in there, let somebody else pick it up, modify, change it. So again, it takes a few minutes, and just go through that first level directory structure.